Beneath the silent void, beyond the last charted stars of the Segmentum Pacificus, there is a frontier where even Imperium's most ancient maps fall quiet. Astronomers once marked the region with a single line of high Gothic script carved across a yellowing star chart. No return, no record, no light, yet rumors whisper that an entire war was waged there, brutal and absolute, against an enemy whose name has been swallowed by time itself. The archives call it nothing. The Adeptus Terra denies it existed. But fragments remain, bone-dried data shards, burned astropathic echoes, and blackened sigils found etched onto hulls of derelict warships drifting through the void like tombstones of forgotten civilizations. In the gray halls of the Librarius, such fragments are handled with reverent dread, for they speak of armies that fought beyond imperial sight and died beyond imperial memory. Some claim it began with a signal, ancient as the Great Crusade, carried by the fading breath of a warp storm. Others speak of a fleet that never returned, battle barges and escorts vanishing into emptiness, swallowed by the deep dark where the light of the Astronomicon trembles and grows thin. Whatever truth lies behind the tale, its remnants form a shape in the shadows, the faint outline of a conflict so distant and so terrible that the Imperium itself allowed it to be forgotten, perhaps deliberately, perhaps out of fear. In the grand archives of Terra, a single cryptic reference exists, not a record, but a denial, a redacted decree stamped by the sigils of the Ordo Chronos and the Inquisition's most secretive branch. The page contains only 6 words. No further inquiry shall be permitted. It is the kind of warning that closes doors and silences truth. But truth is a stubborn thing. It survives in ruins. It festers in the cold hollows of condemned star systems. It whispers from the hulls of broken frigates whose crews died screaming into the void, their last transmissions warped into static, their bodies preserved in a freeze of space, drifting like failed guardians of a secret no one is meant to know. And so the story begins not with certainty, but with the absence of it, a blank page stained by ashes, a battlefield stripped of names. Somewhere beyond the galactic rim, where the stars thin and the void grows predatory, ancient war machines sleep beneath the dust of dead moons. Their armor is scarred by weapons unrecognized by Imperial scholars. Their banners bear symbols that match no known chapter, Legion, Dynasty, Craft World, or Forge. They are relics of an army that official canon refuses to acknowledge. Their silence is dangerous. Their existence is a betrayal of history. Rumors first resurfaced when a rogue merchant frigate, the Sable Drake, limped into port on the edge of the Exaniad sector. Its hull was crushed inward, as if by claws of enormous size. Its Vox systems were shattered. The captain was found dead at the helm, eyes wide, mouth frozen in a scream, body untouched by any wound. The vessel's logs had been deliberately purged, burned into cryptic fragments that flickered between corrupted images. A broken moon stained with fire, a colossal humanoid silhouette striding across a battlefield, and the terrifying symbol of a helmeted skull with no lower jaw, an emblem unseen in any Imperial archive. The Inquisition seized the wreck. Silence followed, but silence is never total. Dock workers spoke in hushed voices of strange armored bodies locked in stasis aboard the ship, sealed behind adamantium doors. They claimed the armor was unlike Astartes' plate, taller and more brutal in profile, ruined with unknown languages, and powered by engines that glowed with dim violet fire. If such tales are true, if such warriors existed, then they were not servants of the Emperor nor champions of chaos. They were something else, something lost. Further hints surface along the galactic frontier. Shattered starforts drifting among asteroid fields. Agri-colonies sterilized the dead soil. Orbital stations found intact, but utterly devoid of life. Their corridors stained with blast marks and blackened scorch wounds. Every site carried the same anomaly, a faint residue of energy that confounded Mechanicus logicians. Records claimed no known Xenos weaponry produced its signature. No known human design forged such war scars. And yet the pattern repeated, system after system, like footsteps of giants walking to the graveyard of forgotten worlds. The most damning fragment was discovered on a ruined observatory, clinging to the edge of a dying red star. The station was ancient, older than mankind's modern imperium, perhaps even older than the heresy. In a vault beneath layers of dust and radiation-soaked shielding, servitors uncovered a single iron tablet etched with a warning in blocky, archaic High Gothic. They will return, not as they were, but as they became. Beneath those words was the same skull emblem, jawless, hollow-eyed, engraved so deeply the metal itself cracked. Whatever civilization left that message had been determined to carve it into eternity. None of these events reached the common knowledge of the Imperium. Such truths never do. The Inquisition closed every case, sealed every vault, silenced every witness. But suppression is a fragile wall against curiosity, and the galaxy breeds those who are too bold to obey. Explorator fleets of the Adeptus Mechanicus whisper of an unnamed region beyond the stars, where Auspex readings failed and data spirits behaved as if terrified, repeating the same phrase across corrupted Vox channels. Do not awaken them. Warhammer scholars speak of countless horrors in the galaxy, tyrannid devouring worlds, Necrons rising from tombs, chaos corrupting civilizations. But this whispered threat was none of those. It was something erased, something excised from memory. It was an army so devastating that the Imperium chose amnesia over acknowledgement. Some believe these forgotten warriors were human once, perhaps a lost legion from the Great Crusade, exiled or abandoned to the void beyond the Emperor's light. Others claim they were never human at all, but a proto-civilization that rivaled the Eldar in their prime, erased not by extinction, but by deliberate erasure. A war fought so far from prying eyes that even victory became indistinguishable from defeat. The truth waits in the dark, buried beneath cosmic dust and forgotten star systems. It lingers in warped astropathic screams and silent shipwrecks. It waits for someone bold or foolish enough to seek it. For every war leaves scars, even when history refuses to remember. And if these armies once rose, they may rise again. For nothing in the 41st millennium stays dead forever, not truly. There is only silence and the echo beneath it, and in that echo, something stirs. Deep within the vaults of the Adeptus Mechanicus, there exists a forbidden chamber sealed beneath sigils of electro-arcane binding. Within its red-lit gloom, data crypts whisper with the voices of machines that should never have been awakened. It was here that Muggos Dominus Theron of Mars discovered a fragment of corrupted memory code, salvaged from a shattered cogitator, retrieved near the edge of the Perseus Veil. The fragment was ancient, predating even the age of apostasy, and its language was a dialect of binary, so degraded that translation bordered on heresy. Yet the Mechanicus is not deterred by fear. It is propelled by curiosity. Through labor, sacrifice, and the silence of vanished tech priests whose names no longer appear in any registry, the fragment was rebuilt. The recovered data revealed a war, not a skirmish between rival Xenoskin, nor an isolated purge by a wandering chapter. It spoke of entire fleets vanishing into a starless expanse, never to return. It mentioned battlefields littered with the remains of constructs taller than imperial knights, draped in runic armor that pulsed with an inner radiance, as though alive. The data referred to them with a single word, Egira. Whether this name belonged to a people, a legion, or a planet was unclear, yet every recorded encounter described the same phenomenon. Once awakened, the Egira marched without hesitation, without mercy, and without fear. The Mechanicus was not the only faction that stumbled upon these shadows. The Eldar of Craftworld Lugganath, guardians of the Webway Forgotten Paths, encountered a silent void where an entire chain of Webway portals prematurely collapsed. Their farcers gazed upon the breach and recoiled in terror, for the psychic residue that clung to the ruins did not belong to warp-spawned demons nor soulless Necrons. It was something else, something ancient but not immortal, something manufactured. In the crystal vaults of their seers they spoke of the Iron Dead, warriors of forged flesh and living metal, imbued with shards of something not unlike a soul, yet fractured, incomplete. The Eldar have many enemies. They do not tremble easily. Yet the collapse of those portals was followed by rigid silence. No prophecies, no warnings, no mourning songs. Some horrors, it seemed, were not meant to be spoken of even by them. The Astartes learned of this threat in a more brutal way. The Iron Talons, an Iron Hand successor chapter known for their cold precision, launched a sanctioned crusade to an uncharted cluster of dead worlds. Their warships burned through the void with the confidence of sons of Ferrus Manus, determined to uncover whatever force had annihilated entire system chains. When they arrived, they found no enemy waiting, not at first. Instead, there were only fields of ash and bones bleached white beneath a hollow sky. The remains were not human, nor Xenos. The bones were too large, too heavy, and seared by weapons unknown. Then the statues began to wake. Across the ruins stood colossal armored forms, each carved from a metal darker than void stone. They resembled the Astartes, though far broader in limb and stature. Their helms bore a design reminiscent of a knight's visor fused with skull's hollow gaze. Some called the architecture of their armor elegant, others monstrous. Each carried a weapon that pulsed with a dim inner light, a power source whose rhythm resembled a heartbeat. When the iron talons set foot upon the shattered earth, the statues trembled, crumbled, and rose. They had slumbered for millennia, dreaming in metal tombs. Now, awakened by the presence of intruders, they marched to war. The battle that followed was short and merciless. Bolt rounds ricocheted from their armored hides. Plasma fire softened them, but did not break them. Even melted charges seemed only to wound. Their own weapons unleashed bursts of violet energy that tore through ceramite and flesh alike, turning Astartes into dust. The iron talons fled to orbit, abandoning the burning world below. Their chapter master transmitted a final encrypted message. These warriors do not bleed. They do not yield. They do not die. Moments later, all Vox contact vanished. When Imperial agents reached the last known coordinates, they found only drifting wreckage. Not a single Astartes body remained. The Ordo Xenos attempted to classify the threat, but every attempt collapsed into contradiction. If these warriors were machine-based, they should resemble the soulless Necron legions. Yet they did not. If they were bio-augmented humans, the Mechanicus would recognize their design. Yet they did not. They left no psychic residue, but their weapons tore warp-born demons apart like paper. The Inquisition drafted a classification code name, the Hollow Seekers. But the name was never spoken aloud beyond sealed war rooms. Across the edge of the galaxy, forgotten battlefields began to speak. Astropathic screams echoed to the warp. Images of burning worlds and shattered fleets imprinted into the minds of the Psychers who died relaying them. Planets that had been colonized in the distant past now lay silent, stripped of life, as though harvested. In the ruins of subterranean vaults, Imperial scouts found towering sarcophagi lined in rows, empty, their stone lids thrown aside. Something once entombed there had left. In a ruined monastery on a barren moon, a single fresco survived the flames. It depicted armored warriors kneeling before a colossal figure whose face was hidden by a helm shaped like the sun. The warriors bore the same hollow skull sigils as the derelict vessels. The inscription beneath, barely legible, read, "Born of silence, forged by exile, returned in vengeance." Scholars argue whether the fresco was ancient human art or the relic of some unknown species. But the monastery was older than imperial records, older than the age of strife, older perhaps than even the dark age of technology. If the fresco told truth, then these warriors, whatever they were, had sworn loyalty once, sworn allegiance to some forgotten sovereign, and that sovereign had been betrayed. A desperate theory emerged among the more radical inquisitors. The Hollow Seekers were not invaders, but revenants, weapons created in humanity's lost golden age, cast into exile when their purpose was fulfilled or feared. Across the galaxy's rim, there are countless remnants of humanity's forgotten empire, abandoned forges, silent citadels, rusted star fortresses, but never before had something awakened from them with intent. These warriors did not wander blindly. They moved with precision, reclaiming worlds one by one. They unearthed artifacts buried beneath eons of dust. They activated signal pylons that pulsed faintly, as though communicating with a distant intelligence. There was a pattern, though none dared speak it aloud. The Hollow Seekers were preparing for something. On the dead world of Meridian, beneath a sky choked with ash, an astropathic recording was found half preserved in a shattered Vox relay. The voice belonged to a dying Inquisitor. His final words were spoken in a ragged whisper. They remember what we chose to forget, and they are coming home. The Imperium survives on denial. It has always been so. But even denial cracks under the weight of truth. And across the outer galaxy, the truth is beginning to move. There are theories whispered only in sealed chambers lit by lumen candles, where the walls themselves are warded against scrying and suspicion. Such ideas are dangerous, for they question the Imperium's foundations, and no institution tolerates doubt. Yet doubt persists like rot beneath old stone. Among the most radical scholars of the Ordo Chronos, a single heretical hypothesis has grown. The Hollow Seekers were not created in the lost age of humanity. They were humanity, not the humanity of the Imperium, twisted by 10,000 years of fanaticism and fear, but the humanity of the Golden Age, a civilization of impossible wonders, where ships sailed the stars without warp corruption and machine minds were equals, not slaves. If such an era forged warrior legions of metal and living essence, then their power would surpass even the Adeptus Astartes. The Mechanicus treats the Dark Age of technology as a distant myth, but the Hollow Seekers, if they are its guardians, are no myth. They are proof that humanity once commanded miracles. Consider their armor, recovered from the remains of shattered colossus found half buried in a crater of black glass. The plates were seamless, fused as if grown rather than forged. The joints moved with fluid precision long after the body inside had turned to dust. And when Mechanicus artificers attempted to cut into the helmet, the metal screamed. Not metaphorically, audibly. A psychic echo burst forth, like the dying wail of a mind trapped inside. The helm snapped shut again, defying every tool, as though defending secrets older than the Imperium itself. The artifact was sealed and shipped to Mars. It never arrived. The vessel transporting it disappeared en route. Its final Vox message a single phrase. He has awakened. The theory that these warriors are remnants of humanity's lost empire carries a darker implication. If they once served mankind, something must have driven them into hiding, exile, or rebellion. The Great Crusade carried the Emperor's armies across a galaxy already scarred by forgotten wars. Many worlds of legions of Astartes reclaimed bore evidence of cataclysm. Cities vaporized, oceans boiled away, moons split open. At the time, these scars were attributed to Zeno's conquest or Old Knight's madness. But what if those ruins were the tombstones of a war waged against the Hollow Seekers? Some records point to a clue. During the Unification Wars, before Terra became the throne of humanity's God Emperor, there existed warlords who commanded armies of gene-forged soldiers and machine legions. It is said that the Emperor struck down every rival, bringing unity through fire and blade. But no chronicle speaks of the armies that vanished into space, refusing surrender. If such a force fled into the outer galaxy, carrying forbidden technology and oaths unbroken, they would have been erased from history, either by will or by necessity. Perhaps the Emperor himself sealed the memory. Perhaps he feared what they could become. Yet another theory reaches further back, into myth. Some Eldar legends speak a human empire older than the birth of Slaanesh, stretching across the stars with intellect that rivaled even the old ones. They speak of warrior forges that produce soldiers of living steel, bound to their creators by psychic chains. When the warp storms of old night shattered those chains, the warriors were left adrift, souls fragmented, purpose severed. In such a telling, the Hollow Seekers are not soldiers, but ghosts wearing armor, remnants of minds that once knew loyalty, now driven only by memory without context. Their march across dead worlds will not be conquest, but instinct. Still others whisper of a truth darker than either tale, that the Hollow Seekers were born not as men, but as weapons, crafted to wage war against chaos itself. Their armor repels demons. Their weapons tear immaterial beings apart. Their minds do not fracture beneath the warp's pressure. If such constructs existed, they would be the greatest threat to the ruinous powers ever conceived. And chaos does not forget its enemies. Perhaps the warp itself buried their story, smothering knowledge in madness and distortion. Perhaps the Imperium's amnesia is not a choice, but victory of the warp. Across the galaxy's forgotten rim, there are worlds where time has behaved strangely. Years pass in moments. Centuries stretch into days. The Ordo Chronos has long investigated such anomalies, often finding nothing, sometimes finding too much. In one such anomaly, an entire regiment of the Imperial Guard vanished mid-march. When they reappeared, every soldier was dead, armor fused to bone, faces twisted in silent terror. Upon the chest plates of many were carved the jawless skull sigil. If the Hollow Seekers are manipulating time, freezing it, bending it, then the Imperium faces an enemy that does not merely wage war, but rewrites the battlefield itself. And yet, despite these fragments of truth, the Imperium remains blind. Official archives state nothing. Ecclesiarchy sermons condemn all rumors as Zeno's trickery. Even the Astartes, the Emperor's own angels of death, refuse to speak of the Iron Talon's disappearance. The silence is orchestrated. Someone, somewhere, knows more than they will admit. Certain inquisitors have been found dead in locked chambers, their minds burned out from within. Astartes' libraries have been purged of data. Mechanicus savants have vanished without trace. The pattern is unmistakable. The forgotten war is not forgotten by accident. It is as though history itself is rearranging, closing doors, erasing pathways. But every erasure leaves scars. Every purged file leaves digital fingerprints. Every destroyed vessel leaves debris. And in the heart of these remnants lies one unbroken truth. The Hollow Seekers do not destroy without purpose. Every world they purge is stripped with surgical precision. Cities flattened, infrastructure shattered, but subterranean vaults left untouched. Within those vaults, they retrieve artifacts, crystalline data cores, stasis-locked relics, and fragments of what appear to be AI spirits, dormant and ancient. These they carry away. They are not conquerors. They are collectors. Some radical savants believe the Hollow Seekers are building something, a network, a construct, perhaps even a mind. Their recovered relics pulse with synchronized energy when brought near one another, as though each is a piece of a greater machine. If they succeed in gathering the entire set, what might they awaken? A god of the Dark Age? A weapon? A memory? There are no answers, only consequences. A storm is building beyond the outer edge of the galaxy. A storm of marching metal, silent as a grave, ancient as forgotten empires. If they return to imperial space, they will not come as invaders. They will come as heirs. For the galaxy has forgotten them, but they have not forgotten the galaxy. Across the outer void, where the last trembling embers of starlight fade into cold eternity, a single truth grows heavier with every passing year. The Hollow Seekers are not lost. They are gathering. Their movements form a pattern of inexorable intent, the slow tightening of a noose around a galaxy's forgotten perimeter. To understand the future, one must return to the ruins they leave behind. On every world they reclaim, towering obelisks rise from the soil, forged in that same impossible metal that resists fire and time. These structures emit no Vox signal, no warp presence, no detectable energy beyond a faint harmonic vibration, like the breath of celestial organ playing music meant for ears no longer alive. The Imperium has tried to destroy them. Lance bombardments, cyclonic torpedoes, even exterminator-scale fire, but the obelisks stand unbroken. And beneath those silent monoliths, the ground trembles. It is said that the galaxy is carved by cycles. Civilizations rise, flourish, burn, are devoured by darkness. Humanity sees itself as a dominant flame in that eternal pattern. But perhaps that belief is arrogance. Perhaps humanity is merely a child inheriting a battlefield it does not comprehend. If the Hollow Seekers once ruled the edge of the galaxy as guardians or conquerors, or something far more terrible, then their return signals not the beginning of conflict, but the continuation of one that never truly ended. There are soldiers who claim to have encountered them and survived, though their minds remain fractured by terror. In the black cells of the Ordo Hereticus, psychers sift through those memories, pulling fragments from the madness. A common image emerges. Formations of armored giants marching with perfect unity, their footsteps silent despite their titanic weight. They speak no language, issue no war cries, and show no emotion. When they fight, they move like statues animated by divine precision, as if each motion was calculated centuries before it occurred. Their weapons do not roar. They hum. Pale violet beams cut through tanks, walls, bodies, and the very stone beneath. In one recorded encounter, a storm of such beams carved the silhouettes of fallen guardsmen into a cliff face. Their shadows burned into the rock. When scanned, the stone still quivered, as though remembering the moment of destruction. And yet, For all their power, the Hollow Seekers do not annihilate worlds entirely. On certain planets, small enclaves of human survivors remain untouched, allowed to flee into the void. Those survivors all tell the same story. The warriors pass them by. Children, the elderly, the unarmed. They were invisible to the Colossi. It was only those who fought, those who bore weapons, who faced a violet fire. This restraint does not echo the nihilism of chaos, nor the hunger of Tyranids, nor the cold mathematics of the Necrons. It reflects intent, purpose, selectivity, as if the Hollow Seekers were not killing for conquest, but clearing a battlefield for something yet to come. Within the darkest circles of Imperial intelligence, a chilling idea spreads. The Hollow Seekers are not preparing for war against the Imperium. They are preparing for war against something else, something worse. Their artifact retrieval, their construction of indestructible obelisks, their awakening from tombs of metal and stone. Each act resembles a mobilization. Their discipline, their silence, their refusal to waste resources on the helpless beaks of soldiers following a doctrine written by minds unburdened by time. Perhaps they were not forged merely as weapons of humanity's past, but as wardens of humanity's future. If this is true, then one question devours all others. Who, or what, are they preparing to face? Some whisper of a presence deeper in the void than even the Tyranids have ventured. A predatory silence that devours astropathic signals, leaving nothing but static and cold. The Hollow Seekers' earliest battlefields lie near these dead zones of communication, where the warp turns sluggish and dreams fall mute. Perhaps they have always known of this threat. Perhaps the war humanity forgot was not fought against them, but alongside them. But the galaxy is not a place of trust. The Imperium's reaction has been predictable. Fear, suppression, silence. If the Hollow Seekers once served humanity, they will find a different species now, fractured, paranoid, and primed to kill anything that does not kneel before the Emperor's golden myth. Even if they come as allies, the Imperium will greet them with bolters and fire. And what then? What happens when a superpower meets the relics of its own forgotten genesis? Across the edges of the map, new sightings multiply. An entire Necron dynasty is reported to have gone dormant without warning, its tomb world sealed, its silent legions locked in stasis, as if conceding a war they cannot win. The Eldar refuse to speak of the matter. The Tau's expansion fleets vanish into the dark, leaving no wreckage, no trace. Only dead systems, lifeless moons, and faint violet ash drifting along solar winds. Even the warp shows disturbances. Where the Hollow Seekers tread, demonic manifestations fracture into dust, howling in terror before dissolving into nothing. No hatred, no rage, no corruption can touch them. And yet, for all their invincibility, there's a tragedy in their silence. They bear no banners of pride. They reclaim no worlds to rule them. They seek no tribute, no fealty, no worship. Their armor is scarred by ancient conflicts, marked by scars that speak of wars far greater than any remembered by living minds. The oldest colossi, those that stand immobile until needed, bear inscriptions carved by hands now dust. Some of those sigils resemble prayers. Others resemble names. If they were once human, then they are humanity's ghosts. In the forgotten data vaults of a remote cardinal world, a single audio fragment remains intact. It is old, so old that its vox lines crackle like dying stars. The voice speaking is weary, the tone steeped in grief. Scholars cannot identify the language, but through translation engines and pattern analysis, a fragment of meaning has been extracted. We forge them as guardians. We abandon them as monsters. Now the dead remember, and we, the living, forget. That is the heart of this mystery. The greatest horror is not the Hollow Seekers themselves, silent titans of metal and thought, but the reason they were erased. What truth was so terrible that entire legions died to bury it? What secret required the galaxy to forget its own protectors? There are no answers yet, only silence and the slow rhythm of awakening tombs across the outer stars. Imperial cartographers quietly redraw the borders of known space, marking systems once ignored. Explorator ships now travel with dread, their engines cold with fear rather than curiosity. Every fragment of recovered data, every drifting warship, Every scorched world paints the same message with brutal clarity. The Forgotten War is not over. There is a presence in the void that stirs ancient armies to life, a call older than the Imperium, older than the heresy, older even in the birth of chaos as mankind knows it. The Hollow Seekers are not coming. They have already begun. Their march is unhurried, inevitable, unstoppable. They rebuild what was once lost, assembling pieces of machine whose purpose no living scholar can interpret. The Imperium prepares to resist, ignorant of the deeper truth. Resistance may already be too late. And so the galaxy waits, holding its breath beneath a sky of broken stars. The Astartes sharpen their blades. The Mechanicus praise the dead machine gods. The Inquisition erases records faster than they can be written. And somewhere in the dark, beneath a dying sun, a colossal helm stirs with the sound of grinding stone, ancient machinery awakening after 10 millennia of slumber. When the last obelisk stands completed, when the final artifact is reclaimed, when the Hollow Seekers at last turn toward the heart of the galaxy, the Imperium will face a reckoning older than memory, a reckoning it tried to bury, a reckoning wearing the armor of forgotten sons. In the end, there may be no negotiations, no victory, no defeat, only revelation. For the outer galaxy remembers what mankind chose to forget, and the forgotten armies are marching home.